So I'm getting stuff going here. Let's see. All right, so we should be live on Rumble. Welcome, hopefully, and it should include YouTube and all the other stuff. So I don't know how to screen share at the moment. Let's see, I want to present. Maybe that. Let's try this. Wayne and Terry on Miami County. Welcome. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's the camera on here. That's okay. So we don't have this. Let's see how. All right, so camera should be going. So I'll need to have. Now, how do you screen share? Again, pardon the delay. Oh, here we go. Screen share with audio capture, and I want to go to. Oh, really? Let's just do screen share. Okay. Let's share. Oh, hopefully that'll still get. I don't know what that's going to look like on there. Oh, okay, so that looks pretty good. There's a little. Okay, so that tells me there. Okay, so we're screen sharing here. Now let me screen share in free conference call. And then screen share in Telegram. Hopefully you can hear me, at least on your end. I think I have all the microphones on for everything. I'm going to go, we're just going to do the desktop like the others and share. Oh, wait a minute. I meant to add hold on. How do I get out of that? Let's see. I got to make sure that it captures the recording with that as well. So hold on. Oh, is this it? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Share system audio. There we go. Share screen. Okay. Oh my goodness, technology. So again, looking for state nationals or state citizens that are willing to step up, that have tech knowledge to be able to help, would be greatly, greatly appreciated. All right, so I want to welcome you all. Again, this is the Indiana Assembly, and this is the Jural and Militia Assemblies are in session, March 25th of 2024. I'm Christine Van Pelt, State Coordinator, and hopefully later on, our guest speaker, Joe, he's the PKTF Executive Director, as well as our Area 4 Postal Chief. He does his best to come to our calls, our assembly calls, being that we don't have a state marshal at arms yet. So he's agreed to come to our calls as often as he possibly can to be that support for us, and to be able to give us information on how the peacekeepers and the militia integrate with all the assemblies. So we want to go ahead and get started with taking a moment of silence to honor our Creator. All right. I don't know about you all, but with all this extra wind that we've been having here, and of course, last night was the lunar eclipse, and then on April 8th is the solar eclipse. So there's been a lot of electricity in the air. So just be careful, but also make sure that you're taking time to connect with God regardless, because this is nature. And you want to be able to make sure that you don't want to be standing out there in the middle of anything, but also show respect. Okay, so here is the table of contents for this week's agenda. Again, I'll be posting this in the description shortly after the call, where it has the who all were on the call, present for the call, so we can make sure that we keep the record straight. All right. And of course, that way give me time to look at all the different platforms. Again, I'm not sure how that all is going to work yet. Okay, so here is the agenda, and it's linked, so you'll be able to go to each of the things. But it's important to still go through these other items before and after the agenda, because they're helping you to remember to bring, so that you know what it is that we need to be doing here and how you can be able to help I can hear and see. Great. Thank you, Wayne. All right. So great tool to be able to use to still go through and have those reminders. It's been 150 years since this has been done, so we have to have those reminders, right? All right, so we'll start with the Bivens decision. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's meeting that is a member of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Is there any response to the Bivens decision for the first time? Please, you can put it in the chat. We're not saying that you can't be here. You just have to at least identify yourself so that we can at least welcome you and be able to support you. And again, and those that are not, still make sure that you put your name and what county you're on, so we can make sure for the record we know that you are present for the call. I don't see any comments here, hearing and seeing none. So is there any response to the Bivens decision for the second time? Hearing and seeing none. Is there any response to the Bivens decision for the third and final time? Having no response, I don't think. Okay, so having no response, let's get back to here. Okay, so further, anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone who is being paid or coerced to be here must fully disclose their presence and purpose now or leave the premises. All right. So again, reminders that nationality is a birthright, but assembly membership is a choice. And of course, then there's a process to go through with that. And reminder that assemblies are business organizations engaged in very serious and important business. We have to set the tone for new members and establish the group values so that the group as a whole disciplines people to be polite, logical, businesslike, and mature. Not platitudes and slathery nice and still trying to be bully and pushy on things that are not on point. The moment anyone starts acting like a seventh grader or gossiping and being paranoid, it's up to the whole group to let that person know that the behavior pattern is not appropriate, not productive, not appreciated, and won't be tolerated. Shun gossip and fear mongering, and it will disappear. They want to try and purposely separate, because that's where the deceit, where they can start being deceitful with you, comes in. All right, so we're going to go through, we're still reading through the Common Law Community Training Manual. And then depending on time, a rough through of some of the key roles still needed, but they're primarily for the General Assembly right now at this point, as we're just still trying to get people to come together to learn the process of working the Common Court, so you know what roles are there. And then a brief walkthrough of Anna's articles. And then again, if we have an opportunity for Joe to be able to be on the call with us. Now, if we get cut off because of weather, because it's also supposed to start storming here later on, just want to make sure that we will be adjourning to April 1st for the General Assembly and April 8th for the Jural Assembly, both Mondays, 6 p.m. Central. All right, so coordinator's mission, which should be for, it essentially is everyone, because we're the frontier, the forefathers now of starting for Indiana. So we're all to be here to help support coordinating to bring this together, right? So we cannot fail. We are willing and able to do this work physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We have resolve and determination. We walk the talk and work every day to bring the dejur into reality. We have excellent tools to complete our work. We set realistic and achievable goals and learn and research constantly. We have a timeline. There's no reason why it can't be the end of this year, right? We're Indiana. Ex parte Milligan happened on Indiana. Why can't we do it? Be the actual light bearers. We track our progress. We measure our strengths and weaknesses. We continually improve and revise accordingly. We conduct ourselves with peace and love. So we want to make sure that there are some out there that can be highly trained and well-paid operatives with the patience to carry out a long-term plan of disruption. And they have no problem with lying, with deep-rooted lies, and they're quick to keep up with, because the only way you can deal with lies is you got to be able to keep up with the stories, right? Because it's all nonsense anyway to create the lie. So they got to be quick-witted enough to be able to keep up with all the crazy stories for the lies. So you got to pay attention, but there are signals to notice. Some have personal agendas of gaining positions of power or control, which there are none here, because it's we, the people. Both are adept at concealing their actual motives, easily gaining our trust and charisma and so-called leadership skills. They may repeatedly lie, manufacture truths, twist or bend the actual truth, speak half-truths, or omit truth to take advantage, to gain advantage. It could be Sally that has been working at the grocery store for the last 2 or 3 years, because you've seen her just about at least once a week going to the grocery store, if you are one that's in town, or one of your regular places that, they've been there for a few years now. They're all right, they should be fine. But they could be that one trying to just hear enough conversations to see about when they can weave their way in, because they're also in that area. And of course, there are other red flags. Here's an actual list of a lot of their modus operandi that they've actually used. And of course, primarily it's attacking the coordinators because they think they want to do something differently. There are some that will, even as the Federation regional coordinator and Federation lead recording secretary, there are some that will email me directly to say, I would like help with training to be a coordinator and get support and coordinator for my state, but I don't want to go through my assembly for personal reasons. That is not how we do things here. They are already moving forward, things in play. You don't go behind, and you don't, and that's just being sneaky. Just because you think you're going overhead. No, that's not what the Federation is for. And that's why we're also here, and as well as coordinators, to help hold the ground, because there are those that come up with the most craziest, twisted stories that you could possibly imagine. Anyway, and of course, they want to attack the foundational elements of the assembly, the paperwork, assembly process. They're sure that they know that their paperwork needs to be different, but everybody else should hold to the same standards as the others. Anyway, you can see through that list, and here's a link to the article for more information on that. All right, here's our mission statement this week in train. Indiana Assembly mission statement. This is something that we need to make sure that is embedded within us, because the mission is 7 key functions that the assembly is supposed to take care and work through. Our Indiana Assembly is dedicated to the restoration, not the reconstruction, but the restoration of a complete and fully operational land and soil jurisdiction, state and county court system serving the people of Indiana, the preservation of the national trust, the enforcement of the public law, the upholding of the federal constitution owed to our state and people,
the repopulation of our land and soil jurisdiction, the filling of vacated public offices, and the reclamation of our material and intellectual public and private assets. To these ends, the people, we, the living people of Indiana, have called the eligible Indiana nationals and citizen electors to assemble and to serve as jurors and officers, and we have established the process and procedure to qualify jurors and others competent to hold state citizenship and public office. We do this peacefully and without rancor in the exercise of our unincorporated powers and capacities. Our outreach mission, because everyone is a part of outreach, because again, we're leading the way to be able to get the Indiana Assembly up and functioning, right? We are the ones all leading the way, so we're all a part of outreach. Our mission is to help people understand who they are and why they were misidentified as U.S. citizens of the United States, and provide a solution by correcting their political status, joining the Indiana Assembly, including home county assembly. Once more, but you're by default already a part of your county, and because that's the land and soil jurisdiction connection, and becoming actively involved in restoring, again, not reconstruction, but restoring the Republican form of government we are owed. We do this through a combination of consulting, facilitation, and training services that provide the optimal benefit to the future American. To assist future Americans, we offer a range of opportunities designed to live like an American. Through high-impact video conferencing, turnkey political correction process, web-based libraries, local assembly meetings, state assembly meeting, continental marshal and deputy program, state and county committees. Now, of course, local assembly meetings are going to be those once there's enough people on your county that want to that have presented themselves. Oh, okay. Joe is not able to make it. He has to deal with, because he has a full-time job as well to support his family to be able to do what he needs to do. So that was him letting us know, and we're grateful for his service. That's where once you present it, and then you start, then say, all right, we would like to start connecting together and forming the local assembly. But that's really going to more so come after the state assembly comes into play, because the sooner the state assembly comes into play, the sooner that the state, and that includes all the county assemblies, would be recognized by all other forms of government out there. So you need to be in that mindset. Don't think, well, I'm only going to stay here and we'll go ahead and get our county up and running. Well, you still won't have any covering, any protection, any recognition of being a form of government until the state is standing. So the sooner the state assembly is standing and having the Jural assembly actually in progress and moving and actually active and doing it, that's when we can be able to be recognized as its own form of government. Then the counties will then, by default, land and soil jurisdiction, receive their recognition of being a form of government for their county structure as well. And of course, continental marshal and deputy programs, state and county committees. All right, our value statements. We stand under the laws of nature, the laws of nature's God, the 10 Commandments, the Declaration of Independence. We accept the fiduciary responsibility of the Indiana Trust and operate under the prudent man standard, meaning we treat our state business as if it were our own business. We keep the peace and uphold the public law. We report crime. We value each man and woman as a unique creation of our Creator and recognize them as a powerful co-creator. We willingly choose to self-govern and strive to show up as our best self in each and every experience. We do not and we will not condone or participate in any form of insurrection, rebellion, or creation of armed forces other than the lawful state assembly militias operated as they're supposed to be operated within each state, and our land-based Continental Marshal Service, which is our jurisdictional interface with the U.S. Marshal Service. We perform under the treaties and constitutional agreements already established, and for supporting the restored American government, the reconstruction thereof, and will become responsible for the conduct of the restored Confederation and Federal Republic. Here are links to documents that you'll want to present. Assembly Affirmation of Purpose and Conduct. You'll read it through, and then put your autograph on it. Don't just do it because that's a form that the assembly said to make sure that you have if you're going to be able to participate. Every single piece of paper, that every single document that you're putting your autograph, you're putting your name to it, read it. I will never ever tell you it's this, just like in the de facto world where they try to come with a stack of papers this thick and just try to do an advance run through and say, okay, we'll go ahead and sign it. You've only got about 2 seconds to sign it right now. That's not being informed. You need to read through that. Okay. Affirmation of Purpose and Conduct. Then your contact info for the assembly. That's for that. So the General Assembly has your information, the Jural Assembly and the Militia Assembly, so that each portion can be able to connect with you so that you can, because everyone's a part of those assemblies. And especially with making sure that you're getting the most recent information coming out. Don't email me, well, it's all overwhelming, I can't find anything. But if you would read the emails that are coming through, come to the assembly calls. I'm trying to keep you as updated as possible. You have to stop coming up with other excuses to not try to actually do some of the homework that comes with this. Assembly men and women points of order. That is going to give you your parameters of how to be able to conduct yourself on the assembly calls. Assembly militia standards and principles. That is brought to us by the Federation and the peacekeepers, so that we have, because the militia hasn't been brought together in really 150 years because they co-opted it to the National Guard. So that was one that really needed to have help to be able to put that in, put together. Committees, the way we work, so that you can start getting, you need to be able to select the committees. Email records at theindianaassembly.org when you're ready to, if there's a committee that you're specifically interested in. I'm working on getting an email automation set up where it's where you can have an email come to you and then you can be able to select for a specific committee, so I can add you to the list and you get email information relative just to that committee. Recommended committee structures. There's the link for that committee structure template, so you can get more information on how committees work. Standard operating procedures. That's how each committee can do it from working through from start to finish, so that it actually moves forward. So there's actually a timeline, so things don't get stalled in the process, because that's a lot of ways of how infiltrators try to stir up. They don't want to commit to a timeline and try to drag things out. And this is to help ensure that business keeps moving forward, even though those that are trying to dig their heels in to try and hold things up, we can keep things moving forward. More information about the call to public office and the different roles of the offices. And there again is more about the assembly offices. Yes, it is a public duty. Here are two specific links where it is the audio to read it through, or you can go to search.onavonrights.com to look up the article to read the PDF of it. Or you can look it up at onavonrights.com. Just look for the article number. Here's the law of peace, because we are promised the law of peace. We finally, after having 9 puppies since November 17th of trying to rehome, we're finally down to where we did keep one, so that I had an extra boy pup around the house with me. And he is now outside for the most part, potty trained. So things in here are much more, I have more time available to be able to start bringing in some more trainings and readings of things. So I'm working on putting together a special of doing a reading of through that law of peace, that if anybody wanted to join on the call and maybe take parts in helping to read it as well, so we can start digesting and understanding how that works. Here are important, you need to realize that you do have three choices. You can either be here in the land and soil jurisdiction at your one and only state assembly that is approved by the Federation. There are no other side little jaunts out there. If you're not hearing from me, you're not hearing from the actual one right at this point, because that's where we're at this point. Okay, there are no other places out there that's going to be able to give you other information and think you're actually committing to this Indiana assembly. All right. Or there's a territorial assembly or municipal assembly. You can still status correct as a national, but then go over there and help support in the Reconstruction. Territorial and district assemblies are for those that are pushy and bossy and really want to fight for that Reconstruction. Municipal are for those that want cradle to grave hand holding support. Here is about information about Faith Monument. I finally was able to get through the document, having enough time to go through the documentary. It's not a lengthy documentary, but it's at least a little over an hour, but it was very interesting. And Americans across the country with us are looking at going to Plymouth November 11th of this year to be able to visit the monument. So looking forward to hopefully being able to get more details and work that and bring that together. Here are contact details. I'm still not doing much with Clout Hub. Again, I'm still asking for volunteers. Again, this is all volunteer because it's by the people as well. Looking for volunteers of nationals or citizens that have social media support to be able to help with all of this stuff. Okay, so this is the piece of the three branches of the American government. This is us, the people that are supposed to be filling here. And so this is our mission that we're working with. So we have outreach and recruitment. We're here to help people understand and navigate the paperwork and record it. The key thing is many don't want to read the paperwork. They just want to fill out the form as though it's a form, but it's a metaphysical thing that's going on with it as well as, like I said earlier, you should never put your name, your autograph, your thumbprint to a document that you have not read and don't know what's in it. And you can't use the excuse, well, somebody else did the paperwork. You still should read it. And if corrections need to be made, adjust however needs to be adjusted. All right. Help people join and participate in the assembly as either a national or citizen. They can still come to the assembly calls, not be a part of a lot of the deep committee work, but still are a part of, because every one of the assembly calls are going to have valuable learning information of how to walk as an American and getting to know each other, because you're not going to get to know each other if you don't show up yourself. There's the law of attraction, right? There's also the command from Jesus to love thy neighbor as thyself, right? So what you give to someone else, you'll get in return, right? Whatever you get, how you treat yourself, you'll also get that in return from others. It's a give and take thing, right? So if you want to learn more about how to walk as an American, how to actually be a part of this, you can still actively be involved. There's a lot, everything is going through the General Assembly anyway. There's so much that the people can still be doing in the General Assembly and not actually be on the committees. and be a part of it. And as long as they've presented that they've status corrected as a national or a citizen, then there's many other opportunities open to them as election processes. There's some things that even if they haven't presented, but they've at least stated they're on Indiana, there's a lot of voting in that aspect that they have the ability that they can be able to do as well. So there's so much that can be done, but you have to show up. You have to actually it's by the people for a reason. That also goes in the same too as buy in your autograph. Just because it's on the piece of paper doesn't mean it's in your own wet ink, in your own autograph. If you do not put that colon in front of your name as you're putting your autograph in, you've left your autograph naked, exposed, for them to still monetize on it. You have to break through that. Just because it's on the paper, get out of being lazy. You need to actually put it in your own hand. Okay, so we have the General Assembly. We've got the 4 parts of the assembly. So there are pillars that you'll hear a lot. The term is the 4 pillars. And these are what comprise the state assembly as a whole. The General Assembly, which we said everything goes to the General Assembly. Everything starts, and everything before it goes to the business or to the Jural or through militia has to start in the General anyway. Then there's the Business Assembly. That's only state citizens. Presented documentation as well as all canceled notices and contracts and conflicts of interest can be on the for the state Business Assembly. Jural Assembly, everyone again, and everyone's a part of the jury pool. If you have not presented your status correction to be a part of the jury pool, there is a talesman process that is available to still be able to be a part of a jury. And then, of course, there's the assembly militia. Anyone, and it doesn't say any man or any woman. It says anyone who's fit between the ages of 21 and 45 is eligible to serve as part of the assembly militia. There's always something that can be done to support with the militia. And we'll be learning more. Or I may take a moment right now in that again, because now that my time has freed up, I am going through it is FEMA, but their CERT program, Community Emergency Response Training. My husband and I did that several years ago, the training through Indianapolis. And so I'm going to start putting together a training process so that we can start getting people trained on community management, because that'll be part of militia. Because we are the first responders. They'll tell you that. We are the first responder. So we've all got to be able to have some basic first aid. We got to be able to know how to deal with different situations. There's a lot of Indianians that are on the New Madrid fault line. There's expected possibilities of earthquakes. So and different types of a lot of this heavy wind that we've experienced has been from solar flaring. So we've got a lot of things that we're starting to experience that we're going to need to make sure that we have some understanding about how to be able to help ourselves through it and how we can be able to help each other, because they're not going to be there. They've already told us the first thing they're going to do is close roads. So we're going to be, which will delay them even further to get in. And we know they won't. So we've got to be able to help each other. And so these are things, so be prepared for that coming up, to start getting involved with that. Again, then also hold elections for officers of the General Assembly and the International Assembly, the courts and militia. That's all done. All the elections are done through the General Assembly. And you can be able to continue reading so we can keep going here. So again, the driver is the General Assembly, and everyone is a part of the General Assembly that live on Indiana. And verification of living on Indiana is necessary. especially if you're standing up as a state citizen. You have to verify that you have to verify you live on Indiana at this point in time, even just presenting your paperwork, because then that also provides where on Indiana for which county, because it is land and soil jurisdiction. And then if you're stepping up as citizen, and there's once you're gone through all the paperwork, notices, and everything, then there's if ensuring that you've lived on Indiana for at least a year and a day to be able to serve as a citizen at that point. If you have, if you were born, if you lived here, obviously there's going to be record, right? Okay, so here's more again about the 4 pillars that you can go through. Again, the General Assembly, Jural Assembly, Business Assembly, and Assembly Militia. And again, we need to start getting more people involved with the Assembly Militia as well. And the General Assembly and the Militia Assembly have the General Assembly is considered a standing committee of the whole, but there's also the standing committee of the whole for the militia. Here is a pictorial of the 4 pillars, and then it also gives the office roles that are available and what pillar they're within. And if you'll notice, sheriff and coroner are under here with the Jural Assembly. All right, so here we have the counties that are in process are in yellow. The ones that are the orangish brown color have at least one papered up, or at least one that have presented the bare minimum of paperwork for as national for their county. The ones in green have 2 or more that have presented bare minimum of status correction. Because in the purpose of that is, one, it's already populated for certain once the first one has presented their paperwork. But once you start getting 2 or more to gather, then that's when that county, it will start building within the assembly as well. And then all the ones in white are 30. So if you're in a county that is colored, and you've got a white county that's around you, or you have a yellow county that's around you, or go around your counties next to you anyway, and go reach out as well as in your own county, and go speak out and start connecting with people. Encourage them to come to the assembly calls to learn more. Encourage them to go to the 50 state site or the TASA website so they can learn more if they aren't ready to come to an assembly call or listen to it live. Okay, so again, here was the podcast, episode 23, that Anna went a little bit more into prosperity cards. I broke that down a little bit more through an email that is going out to those that on Indiana, so that they have some more breaking it down from what was in there, to be able to digest it a little bit easier on how to work with it. Some information to make sure is you want to also check your address or location for where you lived at the time of voter registration. There's been information of using past addresses, previous because you've canceled, but still somebody else using the address to be able, this may be an illegal immigrant, but they're trying to use that address to vote. And I'm not sure exactly, but I haven't been on the Indiana voter portal to check in a while, so I'm not sure how to be able to check from that perspective. And then calls to action, make sure that you're getting the assembly emails, assembly calls. You have to follow up with the confirmation step. That means even if you have to go find it in your spam and select report not spam, you may have to do that 3 or 4 more times, even after the first time, even confirming. But even that first time, once you reported not spam, you got to go into your inbox and you got to go into open the email and click confirm. And you have to actually open the emails. You can't just do previews, because the AI algorithms, If you're previewing only, they're thinking that you don't want it anymore, and then they'll just start popping it back into spam. So you have to actually open it for the algorithms to still think that you want to receive those emails in your inbox. After a while of unopened emails, even if they're previewed, unopened, they'll start kicking them back into junk and spam. And then afterwards, and make sure you have a regular habit of your checking your spam junk promotion folders every day. And then as you've checked it, go ahead and delete out what you know you've already, so you're not weeding through, and because it can actually get lost within there. So go ahead, and that helps keep your folder clean. Again, seeking ASNs and ASCs for volunteer support. Please speak up. We need support. It is by the people. And again, it is volunteer. This is how it works. We don't have an IRS strong arm, and we don't have employers out there to bully, to steal your funds, your money, to be able to ensure that there's a funding source here. It literally has to come from you. There is no other way for this to happen. An email has gone out, and it was opened up to ASNs as well to be able to present their to vote on the two public laws. The first one, Public Law A 10-124, claims all our stuff back and authorizes extraterritorial force and administrative expenses. And Public Law 10-224 removes the purported immunity. And so you'll be able to read that there. Here is, Anna wants you to, there's information to share with attorneys, doctors, and all. So there are several things. I've included the sole survivorship template. And so that's a link to the whole folder with everything in it. So, because there were 2 more documents that I got from the state coordinators, all state coordinator training call. But I hadn't had it because it was Saturday night instead of last night, and I missed the date. So I hadn't had a chance or got the recording to be able to go through it yet, but I'll at least dump the templates into that folder, but we'll be able to get more. But one is declaration of provenance and jurisdiction notice. And these are set up to use a public notary, so they're not going, but they can be then recorded if you wanted to put record it on your LRO, to have it publicly recorded before using it to present. Then there's also international public notice regarding money and charges, and it as well is for a public notary. So that way, for additional documents, and I will be uploading those into that folder, but that link will already be in the presentation here. So a lot of valuable information to be able to help you in that. But that means you're going to have to take some time. All right. I spent the weekend putting paperwork together on two issues for my husband and I, and this is just our copy of how thick of the paperwork, and this one went to three different agencies, and it included these documents. So we'll see how that works, right? It does, obviously it doesn't have these 2 that I just showed you earlier here. It doesn't have these 2 in it because I just got it. I just pulled them up literally today. So, and I already had sent those out over the weekend. So it's not going to include that, but it includes the sole survivorship template and the disclaimer instruction to include for the detailed information for attorneys. All right. So, we're going to do the next pages within the Common Law Community Training Manual. If there are any questions, post in the chat while I am working to get this set up next. So if you have any questions or comments, you can put it in the chat while I am. Where did I should have it on here because it's in here. Because, all right, so I'm not seeing any comments. I'm not really sure yet on Rumble how that's supposed to work. Again, this is the first time, and of course, probably not sure people know about it yet. Okay, yeah, this one here. All right, and let me know if you're not able to see or hear.
Greetings, this is Christine Van Pelt, State Coordinator and Lead Recording Secretary for the Indiana Assembly here on Gibson County, Indiana. And we are continuing with Common Law Community Training Manual, Establishing the Reign of Natural Liberty, the Common Law, and its Courts, a Community Training Manual. And we are on page 13. And we're starting here with verdicts, enforcement, and convicting rulers and institutions. Every legal system operates according to its own worldview and essential purpose. In the case of civil or statute law, the contending interests of individuals waging war with one another in a courtroom define the process and aims of the court. This system serves whoever has the money or influence to present the most convincing case, usually before a single magistrate who is part of a self-governing or unaccountable judicial clique. The law under this elite-derived system is a private weapon to wield against another person or group over commercial interests, not an avenue of justice for all or of the common good. In the common law, contrarily, the court is defined not by contending individual interests, but by the needs of the community as a whole, and by justice as defined by those who have suffered from the lack of it. A bedrock of collective morality shapes how the common law operates according to a simple issue. Will this legal decision and precedent best serve the community as a whole and those within it who are the most vulnerable or who have suffered or been victimized, or who may be? Men and women have a natural tendency to resolve their differences and mediate disputes among themselves, when non-coerced and left to themselves to apply their own natural sense of right and wrong. Despite this, the state has under threat of force, violently conditioned people to automatically deny their own judgment and defer to external authorities whenever they're in dispute or they seek justice. And so a long relearning of freedom is needed for common law to become a functional part of human life once again. Fortunately, we have found that the very act of publicly declaring and establishing the supremacy of the people and their common law has sparked that process of relearning freedom in the hearts and minds of growing numbers of people, sparked but not secured. For the greatest impediment to the efficacy of common law courts lies in the fears and doubts that seize citizens when they are presented with the power to be the law and not have the law be done to them. Quote, taking the law into your own hands, unquote, we have been taught wrongfully is a violation of civil order and tantamount to anarchy. In reality, for citizens to judge legal matters for themselves is the highest civic virtue and the cornerstone of true democracy, according to the Athenian lawmaker Solon. The latter even believed that citizens should be fined or reprimanded for shrinking from a public controversy or from their inborn capacity to be lawgivers. At the heart of that personal responsibility for the laws is the capacity of citizens to judge a lawsuit for themselves as sworn jurors and impose a verdict and sentence in such a suit. The jury system has always been the purest expression of the common law and its capacity to empower the people themselves to defend traditional liberties and ascertain the truth of a matter. To render a fair and reasonable verdict, anyone simply needs to know all the facts and the evidence and consider it all soberly without threats, influence, or coercion. The more people who gather to determine the truth of a matter, the more likely they will come to a joint and truthful verdict. It tends to be the case that individual bias or prejudice, which is always present and undeniable within a jury, becomes through the jury process counterbalanced and absorbed into a broader collective truth imposed by the natural reason and fairness among jury members. Enforcement. The big and thorny issue, of course, is not whether men and women can come to a court verdict, but rather how their decision can be enforced and effective in their community. This is especially an issue when the verdict is imposed against heads of church or state, or even entire institutions, as in the February 25th, 2013 verdict of the International Common Law Court of Justice, ICLCJ, concerning genocide in Canada. And then there's a link to www.itccs.org. To use that case as an example, the moral weight of the verdict was clearly the strongest weapon in the arsenal of the court and created the condition for the enforcement of the verdict against the 30 officials of church and state named in the indictment. For one thing, the February 25th verdict, which sentenced all the defendants to public banishment, 25 years imprisonment, and the loss of all property and assets, directly helped depose not only Pope Benedict, Joseph Ratzinger, but the most powerful Catholic cardinal in Rome, the Vatican Secretary of State, Tarcisio Bertone, who also resigned while in office after the ICLCJ verdict was pronounced. Ratzinger and Bertone now know about international law, even if others don't. They understand that the verdict of the ICLCJ carries a recognized legitimacy under the law of nations and the public right to form tribunals of conscience when governments and courts refuse to address a matter. And the Vatican also knows that the ICLCJ verdict can be entered into other nations' courts and used for the issuing of arrest warrants against proven war criminals like church officers. And so the resignation of these ostensibly untouchable church leaders in the spring of 2013 is simply proof of the power of independent common law court verdicts. A court verdict, after all, is a binding order carrying with it the full force of the law, and whoever ignores or subverts such a verdict and the court's orders arising from it is guilty of an indictable crime. In the appendix to this manual, we have reprinted all of the court's documents related to the first ICLCJ case of genocide in Canada. The court order and arrest warrant dated March 5th, 2013 can be acted on by any sworn agent of the ICLCJ or whoever such an agent appoints. Any citizen, in short, can assist in the arrest of Joseph Ratzinger, Tarcisio Bertone, and the 28 other officials of church and state found guilty of crimes against humanity by the ICLCJ. Such enforcement by the law of citizens themselves is generally recognized in most countries under the precedent known generically as the right of citizens' arrest. In Canada, for example, under a law known as the Citizens Arrest and Self-Defense Act of 2012, citizens can detain anyone who either commits a crime or is even suspect to having done so, or who poses a threat to their own or others' safety. Like, for our purposes, a child-raping priest. This power of citizens' arrest has in fact been broadened under the new Canadian law from what it was previously. And then there's a link to that information. In theory, then, the enforcement of common law court verdicts by any citizen is not only perfectly legitimate and lawful, but is guaranteed even under the laws of countries dominated by civil statute law. But power, as we know, is not only about laws and theory, but ultimately involves naked force. the capacity of one group to impose its will upon another. Hugh Grotius, a 16th century pioneer of international law, said the legal principles acquired power only when backed by cannon fire. So besides its legal and moral weight, what cannons will back up and enforce the verdicts of our common law courts, especially when the firepower of those we are sentencing and arresting is apparently so much greater than ours? Another great pioneer, the Chinese general Sun Tzu, wrote millennia ago that in any conflict, power is not ultimately what you have materially, but rather psychologically. And the superior firepower of a much bigger enemy can always be negated with the right unforeseen maneuvers. We've reprinted 40 of Sun Tzu's most relevant teachings in Appendix C. Those rulers indicted by the ICLCJ are men and women garbed by the illusory robes of their offices, and they are guarded by other men and women who, like the rulers themselves, are motivated primarily by fear. That fear is their greatest weakness and can be easily exploited by even a small group of people, as anyone who has occupied a Roman Catholic church learns very quickly. The fact that laws guard the rich and the powerful is not as important as the reality that any functional law rests upon its moral and political legitimacy. Once such legitimacy is weakened or gone, the laws and hard physical power of a state or church begin to crumble. Once public confidence in a ruler wanes, internal divisions appear in the ruling hierarchy and usually a palace coup occurs and the regime falls. We are witnessing precisely such developments and such a collapse of legitimacy within the Roman Catholic Church today in the manner of events prior to the deposing of any dictatorship. Side note, we're seeing that in the U.S. legal system today. Back to the reading. And so the short answer to the question, how do we enforce our verdicts in the face of the power of the enemy, is simply, we do as Sun Tzu teaches, and strike at the weakest, not the strongest part of that enemy. The weak point of any institution, especially a church, is its public image and its source of money. Threat neither, and the entire institution must respond to the smallest of enemies. We have proven that in practice, and the very fact of our smallness gives us freedom and flexibility to strike at such big targets when and how we like, a power that is denied to big corporations or big institutions. A common law court verdict like the one of February 25th is a wedge between the credibility of an institution like the Vatican and the rest of the world. Clearly, by striking at that credibility, a weak link in the church's chain, we are maneuvering around the obvious strong points of that opponent and hitting them where they have no defense. The fact that as an organization, they officially protect and aid child rapists and human trafficking. And it was precisely by doing such a strategic maneuver that on August 4, 2013, the Vatican was declared a transnational criminal organization under international law. And a link to itccs.org, August 3rd. As such a criminal body, the Vatican can now be legally disestablished, its officers arrested, and its property and wealth seized, not simply under common law, but according to the law of nations. See the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, November 2000, Article 5, 6, and 12, and then there's a link for it. So while it isn't normally possible to immediately detain heads of states or corporations after a sentence is passed against them, such an arrest does follow naturally as their credibility and protection diminishes. Their overt power tends to crumble as the law and public condemnation works around their strong defenses and undermines them like water flowing around a wall or a rock. Side note, take note of what's going on in New York and Georgia. Back to the reading. The point of any common law court verdict, after all, is not to target or imprison mere individuals, but to stop any threat to the helpless and to the community, to arrest such threats so they do not reoccur, primarily by ending the institutional source of those threats. And our chief means to do so is the moral weight of our evidence and verdicts combined with the capacity of many people to enforce those verdicts. Common law sheriffs and peace officers. That brings us to a key aspect of the court, its police arm, without which it cannot function. The tradition of common law sheriffs is an old one in the English-speaking world. Men or women appointed from the local community to detain those harming others, bring them into town or shire courts for judgment, and enforces that court sentence. In the United States, that tradition is still alive and embodied in locally elected sheriffs who are granted considerable power within their communities. The role of the common law court sheriff is fourfold: to provide security for the court, to deliver court summonses and orders to appear, to detain and physically deliver to court those summoned who evade a court order, and finally to enforce the final sentence of the court, including by jailing and monitoring the guilty. The sheriff does not perform these duties alone, but with deputies and other agents he appoints to assist him. Such a posse is another pejorative term that actually refers to an important traditional custom of mobilizing all the able-bodied men in a community to stop anyone who has committed a crime. The word posse comes from a Latin term, pro toto posse suo, meaning to do the utmost in one's power. According to the writer, all persons who were the victims of a crime in Anglo-Saxon England were expected to raise their hue and cry and apprehend the criminal. And upon hearing their cry, every able-bodied man in the community was expected to do the utmost in his power, pro toto posse suo, to chase and apprehend the accused as a posse. From 1215, the year of Magna Carta, by J. Danziger et al., 2003. The custom of electing community peace officers, like sheriffs in other words, arose from the belief that everyone in the community had the obligation to police and protect themselves and their children. The court sheriff is thereby the servant of the people, taken from among them, answerable to and recallable by them, and not an external force over them. Part of the power of such sheriff is that he can deputize anyone to assist him, including other police officers and agents of the very institutions being named and tried in common law courts. This is an especially important action and tactic during the early stages of the development of our local common law courts, since it uses the very strength of the system we are opposing against itself. To give an example of a common law court summons or arrest warrant is to be delivered against a church or government official. The court sheriff will first deliver a copy of it to the local existing police agency, along with a deputizing notice placing those police under the jurisdiction of the common law court. See Court Documents Appendix B. As such, the police are then obligated to assist the sheriff and must take the same oath of common law office as the sheriff. If those issued such a notice deny or dispute it or refuse to take the oath, they are then ordered to stand down from their position and to not interfere with the sheriff and his duties. If they agree with the notice, either directly or through their silence or non-interference, such police agencies are tactically abiding by the common law action, and the normal protection around criminals in high office is suddenly nullified. Such a remarkable encounter is in effect an enormous tug of war between two contending legal systems. A battle of wills played out in full public view as an enormous teaching moment. Our aim is to create and encourage such a creative confrontation and moral conflict at every level of official society. This is the bigger and crucial point of that particular confrontation between court sheriffs and civil law policemen, which must always be visible and televised to the world as it occurs. That is a chance for the people to learn directly that those policemen and soldiers who provide the muscle for the system are not exempt from the authority of common law and must ultimately make a choice concerning who and what they serve. The moral and propaganda value of publicly posing such a question is inestimable. On those occasions when this tactic has been tested in Canada and elsewhere, the results have always been the same. The police back off and do not interfere. Time and time again, neither the RCMP nor the Vancouver police have interfered with protesters who peacefully occupied Catholic or Protestant churches responsible for the death of Indian children. On one occasion, a senior police sergeant even stated that if the church had committed such crimes and were served with a court order, he'd be duty-bound to enforce such an order and help arrest those responsible. Again, quoting Sun Tzu, to defeat an enemy, one must know them, and such knowledge can only be gained through constant contact. Quote, provoke them to learn their responses, prick them to test their strength and weakness. Do not outfight them, but outthink them, end quote. Common law peace officers return power to the people by making them their own police authorities. In so doing, they challenge the very basis of the status quo and its elite-based rule by undermining those unaccountable, quote, armed bodies of men, end quote, who constitute the final and ultimate power of the state. The common law, in short, is a seed of fundamental social and political transformation, not simply a weapon of self-defense or the oppressed. Okay, that was pages 13 to 18 in Common Law Community Training Manual, Establishing the Reign of Natural Liberty, the Common Law and its Courts, a Community Training Manual, and we'll take up in the next call, continue with reading this. So I want to thank you all. Peace and love.
All right. So there was those pages, and we may be able to wrap it up next unless we read through some of the appendix. Depends on how that goes. All right. So I'm not going to read through these, but this gives more detail about the jury. The job of the state jural assemblies is to organize and repopulate the land and soil jurisdiction of each of the American states, and then to finish the reconstruction of the federal states of states so that our government is restored to its intended form and fully functional. The Jural Assembly is big in putting this together, of getting recognized as an actual formal government so that the de facto can stop harassing. All right, and so here's more. There's state grand jury and trial courts, state grand jury and trial courts, and postal area grand jury and trial courts. A lot of, we've got to work. That's where Joe, our postal area 4 peacekeeper, helps in he shows some of those connections through that process. And again, eligible for those for the Jural Assembly, nationals and citizens are members of the jury pool and are part of the Jural Assembly. State nationals and state citizens are both eligible to decide cases involving state issues, while state citizens alone hear cases involving international subject matter. And then here are the different offices in more detail within the Jural Assembly. And obviously you can tell key role roles like recorder and court clerk, bondsman, coroner. So here are more information as well as article information. So you can go look up and read that article for more information there as well. All right. So that goes through the Jural Assembly. And a reminder for who's in the jury pool: all American state nationals and American state citizens are automatically a part of the jury pool. Anyone in the jury pool may be contacted and asked to participate in a jury. The jury is selected through a vetting process at the time of a trial. Questions appropriate for that particular trial will be asked in order to determine if there's a conflict of interest that would disqualify someone from participating on the jury. A jury of peers is chosen by the jury pool committee. While actively serving on a juror maintains a temporary American state citizen status. Those who cannot serve on a jury include court officers that are presiding or assisting with the court proceedings, nationals or citizens involved in the case itself or having conflicting interests, such as being related to someone in the case or being a witness in the case, so forth. All right, so here is more information about the militia and how that connects in. All able-bodied members of the assembly over the age of 21 are expected to actively support the militia in one way or another, either as active militia or acting in support, supply, communications, administrative positions. There's always something someone can do to help out, no matter how small a task. It all counts. The assembly, your state assembly, is responsible for all that's not part of the 19 enumerated services. So it's we, the people, are the ones that are actually supposed to help support and bring all these services together. And then here's more information about that. Here are the different level offices needed for each. They'll still be needed the same for these offices, still for Jural and militia. Vice chair, this moved on. I need to update this so that it's highlighting the chairman pro tem is what is needed. And I need to make sure that I do that. It's on slide 43. Okay, because chairman, secretary, librarian, historian, outreach coordinator, these are ones that are supportive to helpful now. Oh, maybe librarian needs to actually be marshal at arms, because we need to get a state marshal of arms in play, and that is an American state citizen, and they will have canceled all, taking care of sending all notices to cancel all contracts that they can. There are some of those licenses out there. It depends. If you're not employed by or being primarily paid by any territorial, federal funding, municipal funding, things like that, then there's not a conflict of interest, but it's still presenting that you have it so that we can confirm, so there's no conflict of interest. You don't get to make that decision because many don't. Some don't even realize that they're actually a part of it. All right. And then again, here, as previously, are the assembly offices, more information on that, and the call to public office. And here are Anna's articles from the past week. I've put in bold particular ones that are important. She does state in last Monday night's webinar. Last Monday night's webinar to start including sending out the myth of the sovereign citizen with your notices that you're sending out. And it goes here with a favor request for all Americans, all assembly members, to be able to include all this notification. In the link earlier that has the sole survivorship template, also has the information to attorneys and such. That, along with the myth of sovereign citizens, start printing that out, and start, just anybody you know, an attorney, a doctor, anyone with licenses, start getting that out so that they can start getting that information. They have to be awakened to realize what's going on. So those were important ones within there. And obviously you want to keep reading through all of her international public notices, and each are a link. So as you can see, if you hover over it, it'll be a link, or you can just copy and paste it to be able to go there. But these are for the week. These were the big ones to pay attention to. Obviously they're all important to pay attention to, but to get out more information for you. All right. And here is a combination of the articles that are relative to legal cases involving money. Meat of the subject for Declared Americans Only, that series, and the Regarding Money and Charges, that has the info about the sole survivorship template. So here's that folder again that has that information in there. And I will be uploading these two new documents into that folder so that you can be able to access it. It either be later this evening or maybe tomorrow. I gotta remember to do that. Upload to, taking my notes to the attorney folder on high drive. Okay. All right. So we aren't going to be able to have our special guest Joe on the call. Postal Area 4, the reason it's called Postal Area 4, which is Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Michigan, because the zip codes start with 4. So, and he is our Postal Area Chief, as well as he is the Peacekeepers Executive Director. So we were very fortunate that he's also our Postal Area Director. The Customs and Border Patrol for the U.S. has a setup of they're considering the border as 100 air miles of border. So as you can see from the line there of the counties, this is based on what I could gather from the chart, from the map of what county is going through. So even if it's a partial, so there's only one sheriff to a county anyway. So if you're on those counties in the northern, above the line, and the counties that include the line, if you're on that county, take a look at your current county sheriff. If they are one that would be constitutional, let's see about seeing how we can maybe even get Joe to be able to connect with them and start communicating with them to support on that county. Possibly even if they're constitutional, be able to help with this. If they're not, then we need an American state citizen to stand up as sheriffs, and then would be working with the peacekeepers to be able to support in those counties. So please bear that in mind. There may be a second man or woman that has presented, but at least one on Marion County has presented of being interested, of being an assembly liaison with the peacekeeper. However, you have to keep in mind that also means you have to show up to the assembly calls live so that you can present the information, because it's a sharing of information. So you've got to actually be able to come to the assembly calls as well. But it's Joe has asked for it to be someone that hasn't committed to supporting with anything else in the assembly, so that they can be able to focus on that and still be able to maintain their family personal life. So there are 42 counties within the border, and there are 50 that are not a part of it. However, they do impose themselves and overreach at the major airports. So think about that as well. And this is where we have to stop them from harassing our people. Okay. That's also why the police officers on the roads also give them a harder time as well. I need to wrap things up because it's sounding like the wind is really picking up for this storm. So we'll get going here. If you do have any questions or comments, please put it in the chat. Anna did present on November 3rd of 2023 that the med beds are available, and here is their Florida address as well as phone number. To be able to connect with them, as well as their website here to be able to learn more about it. They are $5,000 a piece. You're welcome to look at, obviously, for yourself, but if you're interested in helping to support bringing the first med bed to Indiana, here is a direct link to be able to support funding for that. And Anna gives suggestions about how to be able to, for the assemblies to be able to help each other, help to be able to recoup the cost, and be able to also start providing healing treatments for our people. Here are all the links for the assembly, ways to contact and everything. And notice the booking link here is through Zoho. So worked through a lot of that stuff of switching things over. All right, so we'll be, from what I can tell so far, we'll be making sure to include Wayne and Terry on Miami County within our presentation. I didn't within our agenda. I don't know really how the chats work. How that, evidently there is one on Rumble, and oh, so here's showing. Oh, cool. So here's YouTube. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you could screen there. Okay. So anyway, we're back to, oh, that'll show directly how it is on the thing. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay. So technology and learning the different things, but, so we can at least have that available as we're learning. It doesn't have all the other stuff for the layers of the extra information. So that may be good too, keeping it clear. So I'm learning to work through that. So we'll go ahead, and because the storm is picking up here, we've got some serious dark clouds going on. So we want to go ahead and close this out. Because I don't want to lose the link or anything for y'all. So we'll make sure to adjourn for the Monday, April 1st is the General Assembly, and then April 8th is the Jural Assembly. Make sure you're spending time in prayer and spending time in happiness and joy with your family. And make sure you're in a safe place if you do decide to watch the eclipse. Make sure you're in a safe place to be able to enjoy that. And then the rest, of course, are reminders to be able to help you in embodying how to be able to support the assembly. All right. Well, I want to thank you all, and we will see you all on the next call. Peace and love. Have a great night.